Snow White, the fairest of them all, more like the foulest. You've been lied to for years. This classic princess isn't as innocent as she seems, and today, we're exposing the dark truth behind her story. For decades, Snow White has been praised as the ultimate fairy tale princess. Gentle, kind, and pure-hearted. But let's be real, was she really that perfect? Or was she a selfish, reckless, and downright manipulative character who caused chaos wherever she went? Think about it. She runs away and hides while everyone else faces the danger she left behind. She breaks into a house uninvited, expects 7 hardworking dwarfs to serve her, and makes one dumb decision after another, ignoring every warning and putting herself in danger. And don't even get me started on the prince, because that part of the story is even worse. This isn't just about one girl and a poisoned apple. This is about a princess who got away with everything, just because she was pretty. Disney and fairy tale lovers, brace yourselves, because this is the side of Snow White you were never meant to see. Snow White is often portrayed as a helpless victim, but let's take a closer look. When the evil queen orders her assassination, what does she do? Does she stand up for herself? Come up with a plan? No. She runs away, leaving everything behind, including the kingdom and the people who depended on her. She doesn't think about the consequences or how her absence might cause more harm. She simply vanishes, assuming someone else will handle the problem. And where does she go? Straight into the forest, where she stumbles upon the home of 7 hardworking dwarfs. But instead of asking for help or offering something in return, she plays the role of a helpless girl. She pretends she has no choice but to stay, manipulating the dwarfs into letting her live there rent-free. Let's be honest, did the dwarfs really need her? They survived just fine before she arrived. Yet she makes herself indispensable by doing simple chores like sweeping and singing, tasks they were probably managing on their own. It's not like they asked for a housekeeper. To make things worse, she makes them promise to protect her at all costs. Suddenly, these 7 innocent dwarfs are responsible for keeping her safe from the queen's wrath, risking their lives while she naps, sings, and dreams about a prince she barely knows. Snow White isn't just a damsel in distress, she's a master of manipulation. For years, we've been told that the evil queen was the villain of this story. But was she really? Or was she just a woman struggling with insecurity in a world that worships youth and beauty? Think about it. The queen wasn't evil for the sake of being evil. She was terrified of being replaced, of losing her worth in a society that only valued women for their looks. Snow White could have reassured her, shown her kindness, maybe even built a real bond. But instead, she plays the perfect innocent princess, blissfully unaware, or maybe just pretending to be. And what if the queen wasn't jealous at all? What if she saw right through Snow White's act? A girl who manipulates others, breaks rules without consequences, and expects people to protect her? Maybe the queen wasn't being petty. Maybe she was trying to stop a fraud before she took over the kingdom. Let's not forget, Snow White isn't exactly a model citizen. She sneaks into the dwarf's home without permission, makes herself comfortable, and expects to be taken care of. She also proves to be dangerously naive. She trusts a creepy old woman handing out apples, even after being warned multiple times. And this is the girl who was supposed to rule one day? If she couldn't outsmart a basic trick, how could she handle running a kingdom? Maybe, just maybe, the queen wasn't the real villain of this story. Maybe she was the only one who saw Snow White for what she truly was. For years, Disney has sold us the idea that Snow White and her prince share a magical love story. But let's be honest, does their relationship even make sense? The prince falls in love with her at first sight, without knowing a single thing about her. They don't have deep conversations, shared experiences, or any real connection. He just sees a pretty girl and decides she's the one. Then, before anything can develop, Snow White falls into a death sleep, leaving their so-called love story unfinished. How is this romantic? It's not. It's lazy storytelling. And now, let's talk about the infamous kiss. The prince arrives, sees a lifeless girl in a glass coffin, and instead of mourning like a normal person, he leans in and kisses her. Without consent. While she's unconscious. If that happened in real life, it would be horrifying. What if she never woke up? What was he planning to do? Keep her as a trophy? Ride off into the sunset with a corpse? It's unsettling, to say the least. People call this true love. But let's be real, it's more like obsession. The prince doesn't save Snow White because of some deep emotional bond. He saves her because she's beautiful. And that's not love, that's just creepy. Snow White isn't just naive, she's downright reckless. The dwarfs, the very people risking their lives to protect her, give her one simple rule: don't open the door for strangers. And what does she do? She ignores them. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. First, the queen disguises herself as a peddler and tricks Snow White into taking a lace bodice, nearly suffocating her. Then she returns as a comb seller, and guess what? Snow White lets her in again. But the worst offense? She trusts an old woman handing out apples. Who even buys fruit from random strangers? Even a 5-year-old would know better. Snow White constantly puts herself in danger and then expects everyone else to clean up the mess. She never thinks ahead, never questions anything, and never learns from her mistakes. How is this someone fit to be a queen? A ruler needs intelligence, strength, and wisdom. Snow White has none of these. She survives purely on luck, whether it's the dwarfs saving her or the prince's creepy kiss bringing her back to life. If she ever took the throne, the kingdom would probably collapse in weeks. This isn't a fairy tale heroine, this is a walking disaster. Let's flip the script. What if Snow White was never the innocent victim, but actually the villain all along? Think about it. She invades someone's home without permission, eats their food, and sleeps in their beds like she owns the place. If this were any other story, she'd be the creepy intruder, not the sweet princess. The dwarfs don't owe her anything, yet she settles in like it's her personal palace. And here's the real kicker: her beauty controls everything. The huntsman can't kill her because she's too pretty. The prince falls madly in love with her without knowing a single thing about her. She doesn't have to be smart, kind, or brave. Her looks alone are enough to make men worship her. But who really suffers in this story? The dwarfs risk their lives for her and get absolutely nothing in return. The queen's entire world is ruined just because Snow White exists. And even the prince isn't free. He literally drags her dead body away like a trophy. Snow White is not the helpless princess we've been told she is. She's selfish, manipulative, and thoughtless. And when you really look at the facts, maybe the real villain wasn't the queen, maybe it was Snow White all along. For decades, we've believed Snow White was the perfect princess. But when you take a closer look, she's far from it. She's selfish, irresponsible, and manipulative. She takes from others, ignores warnings, and survives only because of luck and beauty. The queen? Maybe she was just trying to protect the kingdom from an unfit ruler. The dwarfs? Maybe they were Snow White's true victims. The prince? Maybe he was just another pawn in her story. So now we have to ask, was Snow White ever truly innocent? Or was she the real villain all along? What do you think? Is Snow White secretly awful? Let me know in the comments.